When a man is ready to build a life with you, his energy changes. The unpredictability fades, the excuses disappear. Suddenly, he's not confusing you anymore. He's grounding you. So you'll feel it before you hear it, because men in love don't plan consistency. They become it. He starts thinking in systems, safety, and sustainability, not because you asked him to, but because his nervous system finally feels settled enough to protect something real. And the reason why his nervous system wants to protect something real is because secure attachment triggers biological imperatives that shift his focus from seeking to securing, from pursuing to protecting, from short-term gratification to long-term investment, fundamentally changing how he allocates his resources, makes decisions, and envisions his future, because his brain has identified you as the person worth building around, rather than someone to fit into an existing life structure. That's why this is the transformation that happens when a man moves from dating to life building. His entire orientation shifts. He stops optimizing for excitement and starts optimizing for stability. He stops protecting his freedom and starts creating security. He stops thinking in terms of me and starts thinking in terms of we. Most women spend so much energy trying to decode mixed signals and interpret confusing behavior. But when a man is genuinely planning to build a life with you, there's nothing confusing about it. His behavior becomes consistent, his intentions become clear, and his actions align with his words. The beautiful truth is that these behaviors aren't things he consciously performs to prove his commitment. They're natural expressions of a fundamental shift in how he views you, the relationship, and his own future. He's not trying to convince you, he's building with you. Hi, I'm Gabriel Hart from My Daily Love, and in this video we'll talk about the 5 behaviors that reveal when a man is planning to build a life with you. And once you recognize these signs, you'll not only feel confident in his commitment, but you'll also understand the difference between someone who's enjoying the present and someone who's investing in a shared future. Behavior number 1, he talks about time in years, not days. The first behavior that reveals life-building intention is when he says things like, "Next summer we should," or "In 5 years I want." Because men who are planning a future with you naturally include you in long-term thinking, while men who aren't sure about the future keep their language focused on the immediate present. Think about how differently you talk about temporary situations versus permanent ones. If you're staying in a hotel, you think in days. If you're living somewhere, you think in years. The time frame of someone's language reveals how permanent they consider the situation. When a man starts including you in distant future references, not occasionally but naturally and consistently, it reveals that his brain has accepted your presence in his life as a given rather than a variable. He's not questioning whether you'll be there next year. He's assuming it and planning accordingly. He makes plans for events many months away without checking if you'll still be together. He talks about goals, trips, or milestones that are years in the future with the assumption you'll experience them together. He uses we language when discussing future plans. He casually mentions things you'll do together next year, as if it's obvious you'll still be together. Men who aren't sure about the future keep their commitments short-term. They'll make plans for next weekend, but deflect when you mention something months away. They talk about their own future goals without including you, or use careful language that doesn't assume your continued presence. The shift to long-term language isn't something men do consciously. It happens naturally when they've mentally accepted that you're a permanent part of their life rather than a temporary presence. From what I've seen, this linguistic shift often happens before men explicitly discuss commitment, because their brain has already made the decision, even if they haven't articulated it yet. The language reveals what his subconscious has already accepted. Behavior number 2, he shares his financial goals openly. Here's what most women don't realize about life-building commitment. When he talks about savings, stability, or investments, sharing his financial goals and strategies openly, a man only does that when he's thinking long-term and considering you a partner in building financial security together. Think about how private most people are about their finances. Money is one of the last things people become vulnerable about. Sharing financial information requires trust and implies partnership, because you only discuss money openly with people you're planning to build something with. When a man starts openly discussing his financial situation, his goals, his strategies for building wealth or achieving stability, he's revealing that he sees you as a partner in his financial future, not just a temporary romantic companion. He discusses his income, debts, or financial obligations without shame or secrecy. He shares his financial goals and timelines: when he wants to buy a house, how much he's saving, what he's working toward. He asks about your financial goals and values to understand compatibility. He includes you in thinking about financial decisions. I'm considering this investment. What do you think? He talks about our financial future. We should think about, or our financial goals should include. Men who aren't building long-term keep finances private. They deflect questions about money, they don't share their financial goals or challenges, and they certainly don't include you in financial thinking or planning. The financial openness isn't just about transparency, it's about seeing you as a partner in building the life he wants, rather than as someone separate from his long-term planning and resource allocation. Quality men understand that building a life together requires financial partnership and shared values around money, so they start having these conversations naturally when they've decided you're the person they want to build with. Behavior number 3. He starts talking about home. What if one of the clearest indicators of life-building intention is when he mentions living together, decorating ideas, or future family moments? Because talking about home in the context of we reveals he's mentally constructing a shared domestic life rather than viewing his living situation as independently his. Think about how we use the word home differently depending on our intentions. When something is temporary, we call it where I live or my place. When something is permanent and meaningful, it becomes home. And when we're building with someone, it naturally becomes our home. When a man starts talking about home in collaborative terms, what your shared space would look like, where you might want to live together, how you'd arrange or decorate it, what kind of neighborhood or house would work for both of you, he's revealing that his brain has moved past the question of whether you'll build a life together and has started imagining what that life actually looks like. He mentions living together casually as something that will obviously happen rather than something to negotiate. He shares thoughts about what your combined space would need. We'd need a bigger kitchen, or you'd love the natural light in. He asks about your preferences for living situations. What's important to you in a home? What kind of environment you want to live in? He talks about future domestic scenarios, when we have our own place, or our home will. He includes you in thinking about practical home matters even before you live together. Men who aren't planning a shared life keep their living situation entirely separate. They don't mention or imagine living together. They don't ask about your preferences for domestic life. Their home is theirs, and they're not mentally constructing a shared one. The home talk reveals that he's visualizing daily life with you, not just dates and experiences, but the mundane, everyday reality of sharing space, routines, and domestic life. That's a powerful indicator of genuine commitment. Behavior number 4. He talks about family and kids. The 5th behavior that reveals life-building intention is when he talks about family and kids, casually or directly, because these conversations offer a glimpse into the life he's picturing with you, and men don't include women in family planning unless they've mentally committed to that woman as a long-term partner. Think about how carefully most people approach the topic of children and family. It's vulnerable, it requires trust, and men specifically don't discuss it unless they're serious because bringing up family implies commitment and long-term thinking. When a man starts talking about family, whether casually commenting on something related to kids, asking about your thoughts on parenting, or more directly discussing when and how many children he might want, he's revealing that his vision of the future includes family, and he's including you in that vision. He mentions what kind of parent he'd want to be or values he'd want to teach children. He asks about your thoughts on having kids, whether you want them, how many, what's important to you about family. He makes casual comments about our kids, or when we have children. He discusses practical aspects of family planning, timing, finances, lifestyle considerations. He includes you in interactions with his family in ways that signal you're being evaluated as or introduced as a potential life partner. He shows interest in your family background and values around family. Men who aren't planning long-term avoid family conversations. They deflect when you bring up children. They keep conversations about family abstract and non-specific. They certainly don't include you in their imagined family future. The family talk is particularly significant because it's one of the most vulnerable and commitment-laden topics men can broach. They don't do it casually or with people they're not serious about. Now, when all is said and done, the difference between talk and truth is whether his words are backed by consistent, grounded effort. A man can paint beautiful pictures of the future, homes, children, shared traditions, but the one who's truly serious will start preparing for that reality now, through his habits, his planning, and the way he treats you in the present. The challenge isn't just hearing him mention family or kids, it's understanding whether these comments represent genuine planning and commitment, or whether they're abstract future talk that sounds promising but isn't backed by present-day actions that move you toward that future. Most women either get overly excited by any mention of family and assume it means imminent commitment, investing emotionally before he's actually ready to follow through, or they dismiss all future talk as meaningless, potentially missing genuine signs that he's seriously considering building a family with you. Understanding how to evaluate whether his family talk represents real commitment versus pleasant hypotheticals, looking at the context, specificity, and accompanying behaviors that distinguish genuine planning from wishful thinking, is crucial, because this determines whether you're investing in someone who's actually building toward that future or just enjoying the idea of it. The difference between women who successfully identify men genuinely ready to build families and those who waste years on men who talk about it without ever actualizing it often comes down to specific patterns that reveal whether family talk is aspirational bonding or actual planning. Comment family, and I'll reveal the 3 signs his family and kids talk represents genuine commitment and planning versus the 3 signs it's just comfortable hypothetical conversation that won't translate into action, and the exact timeline for when family talk should naturally evolve from abstract to concrete if he's genuinely building toward that future with you. Behavior number 5. He asks your opinion on big decisions. The final behavior that reveals life-building intention is when he asks your opinion on big decisions, from career moves to living situations, because your input holds real weight, showing he's not just informing you of decisions he's already made, but actually including you in the decision-making process that shapes his life. Think about who you consult when making major life decisions. You ask advice from people whose judgment you trust and whose lives are connected to yours. You don't consult temporary connections about major decisions because their input isn't relevant to choices that will affect your long-term future. When a man starts genuinely asking for and considering your input on significant decisions, he's revealing that he sees you as a long-term partner whose perspective matters and whose life is intertwined with his. He's not making major decisions unilaterally anymore because those decisions affect both of you. He discusses career opportunities or changes with you before deciding, genuinely wanting your perspective. He includes you in thinking about major purchases, moves, or life changes. He values your opinion about decisions that will affect both of your lives. He actually adjusts his choices based on your input, not just asking for formality. He makes decisions that consider both of your interests and futures rather than just his. Men who aren't building long-term make decisions independently. They might inform you after deciding, but they don't genuinely consult you or adjust their choices based on your input. Your opinion is nice to hear but doesn't actually influence what they do. The genuine consultation reveals that he's transitioned from independent decision-making to partnership decision-making. He understands that his choices affect you and your shared future, so your input becomes necessary rather than optional.